Today, we're looking at a black ink by Herbin Perle Noire. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, there's timestamps down below so that you can skip around to the parts you're most interested in, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. You can also follow me over on Instagram, and if you're new here and like fountain pen inks, I would invite you to subscribe. I do a new ink review daily. In order to make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I inked up this Duke 209 with a Fude nib. I wrote with it for a day. I then used it to take the notes for this video. In order to standardize some of the writing sample, I always use Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. Now, more papers are tested, and they'll show up a bit later. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, so it came in a vial like this. And to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is just slightly lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 3 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 6 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show no color variation, because there is none. Tomoe River. No bleeding, normal Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. Extra fine is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, and 6 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine and the stub with no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade, 17 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show no color variation, and there is none. It's a beautiful black going on here. Rhodia. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. 4 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine and the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 9 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show no color variation, and there is none. I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we can see here why this is such a beautiful, dark, consistent black. The bottom, what we see is a very dark green that's pushing its way up and a dark purple at the top. So when it comes to paint mixing, that's a great way to go ahead and get a very dark black. You don't tend to paint with the color black. You mix blacks out of other colors, and that's what they've done here. Now the one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water, and there is a noticeable dark very there and seeping into or bonding with the filter paper dark green at the bottom. Makes you feel like there might be a little bit of hold on with this ink. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it might be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, that lowercase h does have some blowout that's occurring. There is tiny little feathers all over all of this. However, it's completely readable and easy. I just think I might choose a different black if I'm going to go back and take notes. Now, looking at the water, we see that it started to take off those darkest layers. A lot of that green that was at the bottom of the second chromatography is still there. Now, water didn't get this entirely out of my pen, which was shocking to me. I don't know what happened. I've never heard of this with Herbin. Pen flush didn't do much more than water did on the paper, but in the pen, it went in, immediately went out, immediately broke down all of the ink, and it was gone. Now, I don't know if that had to do with this ink or that I've put a lot of inks through my pens. The 1/3 bleach solution completely removes it from the paper, but it did stain the paper just a little bit on its way out. I test viscosity or flow with a tilt test that I'll link down below in a description or in a card. Now for the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Herbin Perle Noire has a viscosity of 3.1, making this a dry ink. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. I average those, and what I found is the average dry time is 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Herbin Perle Noire has an average dry time of 8 seconds, making it a very fast drying ink. Instead of finding inks that look like Herbin Perle Noire, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I went with a nice blue, Private Reserve's Tropical Blue. The second writing sample is done on Leuchtturm 1917, Word, and a composition notebook like you would use in science class. Here we're looking at the Leuchtturm 1917 journals, where I just tear them apart like a filthy animal. It has no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 7 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine in the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, 12 seconds to dry. The scrubby shows no color variation because this ink won't let that happen. And up next is Word notebooks. Now, we got a lot of bleed that occurred on the Word notebooks. Not the kind of bleed that went through and touched the page underneath. It is the kind of bleed that would stop me from using the back of the page, but this is also a pocket-sized notebook, and it's not made for fountain pen ink, so I think it did fairly well. Until we get to the front, where there's a ridiculous amount of feathering on that stub. There is some spread, there's no halo, no sheen, no shade. It's full-on blurry. My camera's in focus, don't worry. Extra fine is the same tone as the stub. The extra fine has a ridiculous amount of feathering all over it. Looks blurry. Ew. No spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. 1 second to dry. It's almost hard to tell if there's spread. Saying no spread, but it's hard just because of the amount of feathering. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine with a ridiculous amount of feathering again. So much feathering that you can't tell if that's ridiculous feathering or spread. No halo, no sheen, no shade, 1 second to dry, scrubby for both show, no color variation, and there is none. So we got to see an ugly paper. How about composition notebooks? Well, they're thin paper. We got no bleeding, and of course we're going to get some ghosting. It's normal for this paper. The medium has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is the same tone as that medium with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, and 3 seconds to dry. The scrubby showed no color variation, and we didn't get any, and that is all that I have for the writing samples. So what do I think of Herbin Perle Noire? This is a very nice dark black ink. It's one of the favorite cartridges that I like to put in my Kweiko Brass Sport. It looks really nice on the page. It's really gentle on the pens. I like this. This is a good ink. What nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience with this ink? Dealer's choice. I find that it always looks good. I'm going to remind you that I'm here every day with a new ink review. Thanks for watching.